Hello friends, welcome into Deep Dive Secrets. There is a quiet moment that almost every adult remembers, even if they cannot name it. A moment when childhood certainty cracks for the first time. It might happen when a bill arrives in the mail, or when a job application asks questions no one ever explained, or when a relationship fails in a way that feels confusing, unfair, and irreversible.
In that moment, a realization forms. There are rules to life that were never fully explained. Not in school, not at home,
And often not even intentionally hidden. Just quietly omitted.
This video explores one of the most influential hidden systems in American life. The unspoken truths parents rarely tell their children.
Not because parents are malicious, not because they want their children to fail, but because many of these truths sit at the intersection of fear, discomfort, tradition, and social survival.
Parents themselves often learn these lessons late, painfully, or indirectly.
And so,
The cycle?
continues. From the outside, childhood in America is framed as preparation, education, discipline, character, hard work, follow the rules, do well in school, be a good person, and success will follow. That story is comforting. It is also incomplete because beneath the visible rules, the ones written in textbooks, report cards, and dinner table advice, exists a second layer, an informal system. A set of incentives, trade-offs, and power dynamics that quietly shapes outcomes long before adulthood begins. This system governs money without talking about money.
It shapes careers without mentioning influence. It defines success without clearly stating the criteria.
And it rewards behaviors that are rarely taught directly. The result is a gap, not between rich and poor, or educated and uneducated, but between those who understand the system early and those who are forced to decode it later. Consider a simple question. Why do two people with the same education, the same work ethic, and similar intelligence end up in vastly different places by age 40? Conventional explanations point to luck, timing, or effort. But those explanations avoid the deeper mechanics, because effort alone does not determine trajectory.
Understanding does. Parents often focus on protecting children from harsh realities.
They teach politeness, obedience, patience, and optimism, all valuable traits.
But they rarely explain how institutions actually respond to those traits.
They do not explain when obedience helps, when eat arms, or when silence costs more than speaking up.
They rarely explain that the system does not reward fairness. It rewards alignment, that rules are enforced unevenly, that credentials open doors, but relationships decide which doors stay open. That confidence often matters more than correctness. That risk is punished differently depending on who takes it.
These are not cynical ideas. They are structural realities.
In American culture, there is a strong belief in personal responsibility.
This belief is deeply ingrained and often weaponized against systemic thinking. Parents tell children, you can be anything if you work hard enough.
The silence is not accidental. Talking about these systems raises uncomfortable questions. If success is partially systemic, then failure is not always personal. If rules are flexible, then moral certainty becomes harder to maintain. If outcomes are shaped early, then parenting itself becomes a form of power, not just care.
So instead, many parents pass down simplified guidance. Go to school.
Save money. These are survival strategies, not optimization strategies. And survival strategies made sense in earlier economic eras. But the modern American system has changed. Wages have decoupled from productivity. Education costs have exploded. Networks matter more than resumes. And mistakes compound faster than ever before. This creates a dangerous mismatch. Children raised with rules designed for a world that no longer exists.
Another reason these truths go unspoken is emotional.
Parents want their children to believe the world is fair, at least for a while.
That belief provides motivation, hope, and psychological safety.
Stripping it away too early feels cruel.
But there is a difference between preserving innocence and withholding navigation tools.
Because eventually, the system introduces itself abruptly.
Through debt.
Through burnout. And when that happens, people often blame themselves, not realizing they were playing a game without being shown the full route. This video does not argue that parents intentionally deceive. It argues that silence itself is a transmission mechanism. What is not discussed becomes normalized ignorance.
What is not explained becomes a future shock.
Throughout this series, the focus will be on identifying the specific systems parents rarely explain. How money actually works in America beyond budgeting. How careers are shaped long before the first job. How social capital operates quietly but decisively. How risk, failure, and reputation are treated differently depending on context.
And how early decisions lock in paths that are hard to reverse.
Each system will be broken down step by step. Definitions will be clear. Examples will be grounded in real American institutions and everyday scenarios. Misconceptions will be exposed not to provoke fear, but to restore agency. Because the goal is not to undermine parents, it is to complete the education they were never given either. Understanding these hidden systems does not guarantee success.
But not understanding them almost guarantees confusion.
And in a system this complex, confusion is expensive. To understand the truths parents rarely explain, it is necessary to first define what a system means in this context. A system is a set of rules, incentives, feedback loops, and gatekeepers that consistently produce outcomes regardless of individual intention. Systems do not care about fairness. They respond to behavior, positioning, and timing.
In American life, most systems operate quietly.
Embedded inside institutions that appear neutral on the surface. Schools, workplaces, banks, healthcare, and social networks. Parents often teach values. Systems respond to leverage. This gap is where confusion begins. The first hidden system parents rarely explained is how money actually functions beyond earning and saving. Most children are taught a simplified financial loop. Work hard, earn income, save responsibly, avoid debt, and stability will follow.
This advice assumes a linear economy, one where wages rise predictably, costs remain manageable, and savings grow faster than inflation.
That economy largely disappeared decades ago. In the modern U.S. system, money operates through three distinct layers: income, assets, and leverage. Income is what most families focus on: salary, hourly wages, bonuses.
Parents emphasize education because it historically increased income reliability.
But income is taxed first, capit time, and vulnerable to disruption.
It is the least powerful layer. Assets are what generate money without direct labor.
Homes, businesses, stocks, intellectual property. Assets appreciate, depreciate, or produce cash flow, depending on structure. Families with assets experience time differently. They earn while waiting. Leverage is the multiplier. Credit, legal structures, and networks allow some individuals to use other people's money, time, or influence to scale outcomes.
Leverage is not inherently dangerous, but it is rarely explained early, leaving many to encounter it only through high-interest debt.
Parents often warn children about debt without distinguishing between consumer debt and strategic leverage. Credit cards and payday loans extract value. Mortgages and business credit can concentrate it.
The system treats these very differently.
This is why two families earning similar incomes can diverge dramatically over a generation.
One understands assets and leverage. The other is taught only income discipline.
The second hidden system involves education, not learning, but signaling.
Parents emphasize grades, degrees, and credentials because they appear objective.
But in the US, education functions as a signaling system more than a skills system.
A signal is a shortcut used by institutions to reduce uncertainty.
A degree does not prove intelligence.
It signals conformity, persistence, and baseline competence. Elite institutions signal access to elite networks. Certain majors signal risk tolerance or technical capacity.
Parents rarely explain this distinction. Children are told education guarantees opportunity, not that it positions them within a sorting mechanism.
This is why two graduates with the same degree can face entirely different outcomes. One understands how to translate the signal through internships, referrals, geographic targeting, and narrative framing. The other waits for the credential to speak for itself.
The system rewards those who stack signals early.
Internships during college matter more than GPA after graduation. Recommendations often outweigh location determines opportunity density. These are not moral judgments. They are mechanical realities.
The third hidden system is social capital.
Social capital refers to access to information, trust, and opportunity through relationships. It is not about popularity. It is about proximity to decision makers and early knowledge of opportunities.
Parents often tell children to be nice and work hard, assuming merit will attract attention. But the system does not scan for effort. It responds to referrals, familiarity, and perceived alignment.
In the U.S., many jobs are filled before they are publicly posted. Many opportunities are shared quietly within networks. This is not corruption. It is efficiencies from the system's perspective. Children from families with professional networks absorb this reality implicitly. They learn how to ask for introductions, follow up professionally, and maintain weak ties. Others are taught self-reliance, assuming independence is rewarded. In practice, isolation is penalized.
Parents rarely explain that asking for help is not weakness, it is a skill.
Or that visibility matters as much as performance. Or that silence is often misinterpreted as disengagement.
The fourth hidden system involves risk.
Parents warn children to avoid mistakes. Choose stable paths. This advice reflects parental fear, not systemic design. The American system does not punish all risk equally.
It punishes unbuffered risk.
Those with financial cushions, supportive networks, and reputational insulation can fail multiple times with minimal long-term damage. Those without buffers face compounding consequences from a single error.
Parents often frame risk as a moral choice rather than a calculated exposure.
They do not explain how timing matters, that risk taken early is cheaper than risk taken late, or that experimentation before fixed obligations is structurally safer. As a result, many children internalize risk aversion during the very window when risk is most affordable. The fifth hidden system is time compression. The system accelerates consequences as adulthood progresses. Choices made between ages 18 and 25 often determine trajectory not because they are irreversible,
But because they shape compounding effects. Parents emphasize patience and delayed gratification, valuable traits, but rarely explain compounding.
Small advantages stack quietly. Small delays multiply.
choosing a location with more opportunity density, building skills adjacent to growth industries, forming relationships early, avoiding certain forms of debt. These are not dramatic decisions.
But the system amplifies them over time.
The sixth hidden system is reputation. Reputation is not character, it is perception over time within a system. Parents teach morality but not narrative control. In professional and institutional settings, how actions are interpreted often matters more than intent. Reliability, communication style, and perceived alignment with group norms influence opportunity, access.
The system records behavior informally.
Missed deadlines, poor follow-up, emotional volatility, these become silent signals. Parents rarely explain this because it feels transactional. But the system is transactional. None of these systems are evil. They are adaptive mechanisms responding to scale and complexity. The problem is not their existence, it is the absence of early explanation.
Without understanding these systems, individuals misattribute outcomes. They blame themselves for structural friction.
They work harder when they should reposition.
They persist where adaptation is required.
And because parents often never learn these rules explicitly, they cannot pass them on. What looks like wisdom is often inherited blind spots.
When hidden systems go unspoken, their effects do not appear immediately.
They accumulate quietly, often disguised as personal shortcomings or bad luck.
This is what makes them so powerful and so difficult to detect.
The first major consequence is delayed realization.
Many Americans do everything they were told to do. They follow the rules as they understand them. They graduate, they get a job.
They avoid obvious mistakes.
And yet, by their late 20s or early 30s, something feels wrong. Progress feels slower than expected. Stability feels fragile. Opportunity seems unevenly distributed.
People with no visible advantage appear to advance faster.
This creates cognitive dissonance, a clash between expectation and outcome.
Because the system was never explained, the individual searches for explanations internally.
I didn't work hard enough. I chose the wrong major. I'm just not good at this. I must have missed something. In reality, they did miss something, but not through personal failure. They missed the invisible scaffolding others were standing on. This delayed realization is costly because the system is least forgiving later. Early adulthood is a period of optionality. Fewer obligations, lower reputational stakes, greater tolerance for experimentation. When understanding arrives after commitment, solidify mortgage dependence, fixed careers, adaptation becomes expensive. The second consequence is misallocated effort. People who do not understand systems tend to overinvest in effort and underinvest in positioning.
They work longer hours rather than building leverage.
They pursue additional credentials rather than access points. They perfect skills that the system undervalues while neglecting signals the system responds to. This is why burnout is common among high-effort, low-leverage individuals. The system rewards output differently depending on context. Two people can produce the same work. One receives advancement, the other receives exhaustion. Parents often encourage persistence without teaching calibration. The system does not reward persistence uniformly. It rewards persistence in the right channels. Without that knowledge, effort becomes inefficient. The third consequence is moral confusion. When outcomes diverge, people often assume ethical explanations. They conclude the system is corrupt or that successful people must be unethical. While corruption exists, this explanation is incomplete. More often, success reflects system fluency rather than moral compromise. Parents teach fairness because it is socially stabilizing.
Systems operate on incentives because they are functionally stabilizing.
When children grow up believing fairness governs outcomes, encountering incentive-driven reality feels like betrayal. This leads to either cynicism or disengagement.
Some reject the system entirely, opting out emotionally while still participating materially. Others internalize resentment.
Both responses reduce agency.
Understanding systems does not require endorsing them.
But rejecting a system you must operate within is not resistance, it is surrender.
The fourth consequence is compounded inequality, not just economic, but informational. When parents understand systems, even imperfectly, they transmit small advantages early.
They choose neighborhoods strategically.
They encourage certain extracurriculars. They normalize asking questions, negotiating, and leveraging relationships. When parents do not understand systems, they transmit caution. Avoid risk. Don't stand out. Don't ask for favors. Don't challenge authority. These messages feel protective. In practice, they reduce exposure to opportunity. Over generations, this creates widening gaps that are invisible to those inside them.
From the outside, outcomes appear merit.
From the inside, they feel predetermined. The system does not reset each generation. It compounds.
The fifth consequence is identity distortion.
People raised without system awareness often ties self-worth to compliance.
They measure value through external approval, grades, titles, recognition.
When these signals fail to produce security, identity fractures. They feel cheated, even ashamed. They were good, yet the promised stability did not arrive. This is particularly damaging in American culture, which equates success with virtue. When outcomes fall short, self-blame intensifies. Parents rarely explain that systems are indifferent to virtue. They respond to alignment. Confusing the two leads to emotional debt, a constant sense of under-earning one's effort. The sixth consequence is late-stage risk, the most dangerous kind. When people suppress experimentation early, they often compensate later. Midlife career changes, financial gambles, abrupt exits. These risks are taken under pressure, with higher stakes and fewer buffers. The system punishes late risk more severely.
Responsibilities amplify consequences.
Recovery windows shrink.
Yet the desire for autonomy does not disappear. It compresses.
Parents often intend to protect children from instability.
Ironically, this can increase the likelihood of future instability. The seventh consequence is inherited silence. Adults who learn these truths late often struggle to articulate them. They feel bitter or embarrassed or unsure how to translate abstract realizations into guidance. So when they become parents, they repeat the cycle, offering safety over clarity.
Silence becomes tradition.
This is how systems persist without enforcements. They rely on omission, not conspiracy. At this point, an important clarification must be made. These systems are not monolithic.
They are not perfectly coordinated. There is no single authority deciding outcomes.
Instead, they emerge from millions of small decisions made by institutions optimizing for efficiency, predictability, and risk reduction. Schools sort, employers filter, banks price risk, networks conserve trust. Each system acts rationally within its own constraints.
The harm occurs when individuals are taught morality without mechanics.
Parents explain what should happen, not what does happen.
The system responds only to what happens.
Understanding this gap reframes many common frustrations.
Why honesty sometimes stalls careers. Why loyalty is not always rewarded. Why talent goes unnoticed. Why stability feels elusive despite compliance. These are not personal failures. They are system mismatches.
And mismatches can be corrected, but only once they are seen.
The escalation reaches its peak when individuals realize that time, not intelligence, is the scarcest resource. That the cost of ignorance was not immediate pain, but delayed leverage. At But moment, two paths emerge. One is resignation, accepting diminished agency and narrowing expectations. The other is recalibration, learning the system midstream and adapting intentionally.
The next section focuses on that recalibration.
Because understanding systems late is not ideal, but it is not fatal.
And while parents may not have explained these rules, they can still be learned.
Once the hidden systems are visible, something important changes. Confusion gives way to clarity.
Frustration becomes directional.
And what once felt personal begins to look structural. This is the moment most parents hope their children never have to face, the realization that the world doesn't operate on intention alone. But it is also the moment where agency actually begins.
The first key lesson is this: values and systems are not the same thing.
Parents teach values because values shape identity. Systems shape outcomes.
The mistake is assuming one automatically guarantees the other.
Integrity does not ensure advancement. Hard work does not ensure security.
Patience does not ensure fairness.
But values are still essential, not because they control the system, but because they control how a person navigates it. Understanding systems allows values to be applied strategically instead of blindly. Honesty paired with positioning, effort paired with leverage, patience paired with timing. This distinction alone prevents years of misdirected effort. The second key lesson is that awareness changes cost curves. When someone understands how money, education, networks, risk, and reputation actually function, they stop paying unnecessary prices. They stop overpaying in time for low leverage returns. They stop overpaying in loyalty to institutions that do not reciprocate. They stop overpaying in silence when visibility is required. Parents rarely explain this because pricing mistakes feel abstract until they compound, but on Seychelles, they can be corrected incrementally.
Small adjustments matter more than dramatic overhauls.
The third key lesson is that systems reward interpretation, not compliance.
Most people are taught to follow instructions precisely.
Systems, however, reward those who understand intent.
A job description describes minimum requirements, not the selection logic. A degree certifies completion, not competitiveness. A rule defines boundaries, not strategy. Those who succeed consistently ask a different question. What is this system actually optimizing for?
Parents often discourage this question because it can sound manipulative or disrespectful.
In reality, it is adaptive literacy. Understanding optimization does not require abandoning ethics. It requires abandoning navi. The fourth key lesson is that asking is a learned skill. Access does not flow automatically to effort.
It flows through requests, referrals, and recognition.
Parents often teach self-sufficiency as a virtue without explaining that systems interpret isolation as low engagement.
Learning how to ask clearly, professionally, and appropriately changes trajectory. This includes asking for feedback, asking for opportunities before they are formalized. Systems do not reward quiet endurance.
They reward legibility.
The fifth key lesson is that risk should be timed, not avoided.
Parents warn against failure because they fear instability.
Systems punish failure only when it is poorly buffered or poorly timed.
Early risk, when reputational and financial stakes are low, is informational. Late risk is existential.
Understanding this reframes experimentation not as recklessness, but as data collection.
The system is most forgiving when learning curves are steep and expectations are low.
That window closes gradually, not suddenly, but it does close.
The sixth key lesson is that reputation is cumulative but adjustable. While reputation compounds, it is not fixed.
Systems update perceptions slowly,
But they do update them.
Consistency matters more than intensity. Reliability matters more than brilliance. Parents teach character, assuming it will be noticed.
Systems require translation.
Character must be made visible through behavior patterns the system can interpret. This is not self-promotion. It is signal alignment. The final lesson is the most difficult. Parents are not gatekeepers of truth. They are carriers of incomplete maps.
Most parents pass down what helped them survive, not what optimizes in a changed environment. This is not failure.
It is inheritance lag.
Understanding this reduces resentment and restores responsibility.
Because once the system is visible,
The obligation shifts from blame to calibration, from expectation to intention. The purpose of revealing these hidden systems is not to strip meaning from life. It is to restore choice. Choice over where to invest. Choice over how to define success beyond inherited scripts. When systems are unseen, they feel like fate.
When systems are understood, they become terrain.
Every system discussed in this video operates quietly, not because it is secret, but because it does not need to announce itself.
Most people never stop long enough to examine the forces shaping their outcomes.
They simply move through them, interpreting results as personal wins or losses.
This episode was brought to you by Deep Dive Secrets, a channel dedicated to examining the invisible structures that influence everyday American life.
The goal is not to create fear, resentment, or distrust. It is to replace confusion with clarity, to take what feels abstract or unfair and break it down into understandable mechanism. Because once a system is understood, it loses much of its power to surprise. If this video changed the way you think about advice you were given growing up, consider sharing it with someone who is still navigating those early decisions.
These conversations rarely happen at the dinner table, but they shape entire lifetimes.
If you found value here, take a moment to like the video. It helps this kind of long-form educational storytelling reach people who are actively searching for understanding rather than shortcuts. Subscribe to Deep Dive Secrets if you want more explorations into the hidden systems behind money, work, education, and decision-making in America. New videos continue this pattern, slow, careful, and grounded in reality rather than hype. And in the comments, consider this question. What is one rule of adulthood you had to learn the hard way? Your insight may be the missing piece someone else never heard growing up.